Welcome to Quilt Tribe for August. I can't believe how quickly August has come. Can you guys? I know we're meeting earlier than usual, but still, it's really quick. So I have to start out by showing a picture of Sadie because there she is. How cute is that? Yeah, she was over at the house. They came over for a barbecue on Saturday night. So she was in one of those papoose things that they wrap around the mom and the baby. I don't know how those things work. I probably would have strangled myself if I had one. But she was kind of sleeping. So when it's time to go, they had to put her in her car seat, right? So Dylan goes, well, this can go really good, you know, like happy baby, or this could be really bad, like crying baby. So as you can tell, it was happy baby. So we were excited about that. It was fun. I held her as much as I could. Yeah. Yeah, they've already started saying, so, Mom, are you going to be available for babysitting? It won't be for a while. Okay, so the first block that we're going to do tonight is Inka. And it's a really different kind of block. It's not like a normal piece block that we do. And it's kind of sort of log cabin based, but a little bit different. So I'm going to take you through it. So let's put it up on the board. And I also chose to use some directional fabric as my print back here, just to show you if you have directional fabric, how you can make it work for you. Okay? So we're going to start out with the little square of our directional fabric. And you can just follow along. I'm already on page 3. And see how these feathers go up and down? Okay, I'm going to try and keep that theme, so it continues to work. So what I'm going to do is first I'm going to sew the short side on, and then I'll sew the longer side on. And right away, if you sew this to here and you put this up and this is like either too long or too short compared to this, you know you're going to need to adjust your quarter seam because it's either too wide or too narrow. But if it matches right up, you're in good shape. So that's the first thing we're going to do. And when it's all sewn on, we're going to press our seam so it goes out towards our background. And the next thing we're going to do is start adding our blue square. Can you see the blue square down in the lower left? Okay, so that's done. Opposite sides together. Press your seams towards the blue. So it looks like this. And then we're going to add a blue above and below. Easy enough so far, right? Really similar to a log cabin. Kind of an offset log cabin. And then what we're going to have 2 of our print strips we're going to sew to some background. Now this one up here is going to go along the top of our block, and this one down here is going to go along the side. So you want to make sure that, like in this case, the feathers are going in the correct direction and these feathers are going up. It's going to be, if we go over to our block, it's going to be right in here what we're going to be sewing. Okay? Okay, so here we have our center all sewn together, and then we're going to sew this to the side, and this is going to go along the top, okay? And when that's sewn, it's going to look like this. So it kind of looks like it's hiding back behind it when it's really not hiding. It's kind of an optical illusion. And finally, we're just going to add the strip on the right and the one across the top, pressing the seams away. So it's kind of fun because it's a different kind of technique to do. There's no squaring up. That's really exciting. So you can either do this one first to get it done and feel a sense of accomplishment, or you can do it last to reward yourself. Right? Okay, so that's that one. The next one we're going to do is Kingfisher. And that's the one, those of you at home, you probably got an email this afternoon giving you a new page 9. Because I saw it this morning. So make sure you use the new page and not what's in your pattern. Sorry about that. We look and look, but then we find it. So this just consists of one very large piece triangle square and then 7 additional littler ones. So I'll put that up on the board for you. I think it's a pretty block. Okay, so to make our little ones, we're going to start out with 2 squares. And since we need 7 of them, we're going to do the method where we actually make 8 at a time. So we're going to have an extra one at the end. All you do is put your fabrics right sides together, and you're going to draw 2 diagonal lines and sew 1/4 inch from both sides. Now when you go to cut it apart, don't forget to cut it vertically and diagonally. That's what people only cut on those drawn lines. And then they only have 4 things that don't really work for them. So I'm just going to cut this through just to remind you to cut both ways. Now this is in your definitive guide. This is just a reminder, right? You want it to look like that. Okay? And then when you square it up, you're going to have those little nice things. And you square it up to the size of blocks that you're working on. I'm sure you guys are familiar with that by now. So now for the next one, to do our big one, we're going to make 2. We're only going to use 1 of them. So make sure you save the other one with your other leftover pieces that we're going to think of something very clever in the end to do with. And I don't know what that is. So we're going to just sew both sides of that drawn line, cut it apart, and then we'll square it up. Okay? So that's going to be the center of our block. Now let's turn the page, because this is really important. I want you to kind of watch what I'm doing as I'm doing it. Okay, the bottom of page 8. Okay, we're going to sew, if you look over here towards the bottom, we're going to sew 4 in this direction, and we're going to sew 3 in this direction. So just remember that all of your medium fabric is going to be along the top, okay? But what's interesting enough, you're going to press all of these in the same direction. Okay, you don't press one way, one the other. They all go in the same direction. Because what we're going to do is the first thing we're going to do is we're going to sew this to here. Okay, and that will look like this when it's sewn. And then we're going to turn around and add the final one, which looks like, whoops, I'm going on the other side, which looks like this. Okay, and that's how we get to our block. All right, so it's pretty easy, but just really pay attention to the direction of your triangles. And you're going to want to sew it this way so your triangles are going out. But just remember that this background part of the triangles is going towards the center of your block, just to give it a little bit different twist. That one also is not very hard. But you have to pay attention to it, right? All right. The next one we had is called Mousse. It's kind of like the moose in the water, you know, like they like to stand in the water, right? So this has a whole bunch of piece triangle squares. There's actually 16 of them. 4 are going to be of this one color. And I can't remember if I called that one dark or light. I called that dark. Good, I was going to guess that, but I thought I better look. And then the other 12 are going to be out of your medium fabric. We'll put this one up on the board. Okay, so the first thing we're going to do is we're going to make our dark ones. And since we only need 4, we're just going to start with the rectangle where you just draw one line that goes straight down to make 2 squares. And then you're going to draw one diagonal line in each one and sew 1/4 inch. And remember to start sewing on the inside and then looping around and getting the outside just to relieve any excess fabric that might gather on you. And when you square that up, it's going to look like that, and you're going to press all of these seams towards your dark. Okay, we need more of these. Okay, so it looks, I kind of think it looks like a fish sort of type thing, but this way you can just sew without breaking your thread. So once you get your grid work all done, and remember only put one diagonal line per square, we're going to start here and we're going to sew up through here, pivot when you get to that line, go down here and leave your needle in and pivot again, and we're just going to continue around till we get to the outside edge. And you can see this little loop. I just sort of pulled it out of my machine and then started again, and we're going to continue getting the outside edge. Now if you go the other way, not to worry, it's still going to work, but that's just the way that I do it. So when you go to square these up, I'll just go straight to the back so you can see what I'm talking about. Okay, can you see how these are pressed towards the medium? Well, you're going to press 8 of them like this, and you're going to press 4 of them like that. Because this way we want all our seams to lock as we're doing our corner patches. Now let's look at our pattern. And if you have a pen or something, I recommend that you just add these little arrows. I have an illustration here for you to show you where the placement is according to which way your seams are pressed. But you're going to be laying it out right side up. So I thought this morning, oh, these arrows would really help. So notice that this one is the only one, the one in the upper left-hand corner, the only one that's pressed towards the background. That's where that guy's going to go. And then this guy is going down towards your medium, etc. So let's lay that out. Okay, so that's going down, which is, okay, this is my one that's going away. So we're going to place it there. This goes here, and then this goes here. The reason I have this going this way and this being pressed this way is because we're going to sew these two together, and I want these seams to lock. Okay, they're just going to nestle right on top of each other. And I'll show you with the back in just a minute. So it's good just to make sure you have that. And then you're just going to flip the ones on the right over the ones on the left, assembly line sew, and you're going to make 4 sets of these. So you could just make one, start make the next one, start make the next one, or you can just do it individually, whichever way is easier for you. So I got my seam down. I do not clip that seam between the two because then I won't accidentally turn it around and sew it to the wrong side. And when that's done, you're going to open it up. I'll just open it up like this. Okay, and we're going to have the seam on top go up and the seam underneath go down so we get a good lock in the middle. So when it's sewn, it should look like this. And then when we open it up, we're going to swirl along the back. Okay, this is the way I swirl sometimes, most of the time, but I don't swirl all the time. So now let's see if we can lay it out. Okay, I was having fun doing this morning. Okay, so there's the one in that corner. Then I have that one. Does that look right? And then this is here. Okay, and that should be there. Is that right? I had one turned this morning. I kept looking and I go, okay, these looks right, but it was turned anyway. So then when it's done, when you go, you're just going to flip it just like we did the little quarters. Flip it, do the exact same thing. So this, then this, and I also swirled the middle seam. I think it's pretty. I'm liking these colors. All right, so that one just takes a lot of squaring out, but not too bad. Okay, so the next one we're doing is native. And native's kind of a fun, it's also a different kind of technique, not a normal make piece triangle squares except for the corners. We're going to start that way, but then it's kind of fun. And it kind of reminds me of the guy's little outfit, huh? Yeah. It's all bright colors. I think that was my inspiration. Okay, so we'll put this guy up. Okay, this is done a little bit differently because we're actually going to start our construction of this block from the corners and work towards the middle. Okay, so that means I'm going to start by making our piece triangle squares exactly like we did before. Draw the line, make 2 squares. You could say this in your sleep, right? I can say it in my sleep. So once that's done, I'm going to sew a background, narrow background, and then a longer background to 2 sides of it, making sure I'm sewing the background to the medium fabric. Okay, you're not going to sew any background over here. It's always to the medium. And for medium 2 and 3, you have these squares, and all you're going to do is you're going to draw a diagonal line, one diagonal line on each one of your squares. Now, I recommend that you use like a friction pin or something that's going to disappear. I used a permanent just so you could see it, but some of your lighter, so you can see how that kind of goes through. Can you kind of see it? I mean, that's the front, so you wouldn't want that on your quilt. Okay, so once we got these marked, I'm going to go ahead and I'm going to put them on this lower corner, and we're going to sew them down. And when it's sewn down, you're going to check first to make sure that this fabric goes down and all the way to the corner, that you have enough fabric. And see how nice that is? It's pretty, it looks harder than it is. And then you're just going to cut off the excess. Okay? So when it's cut off, you're going to do the same thing as we did before. We're going to add some background, 2 sides of background like a log cabin. And then we'll add the middle color and fold it back so it looks like that. And I don't think I just mentioned this, but I always sew kind of on the left side of that drawn line. So when I have fabric to make sure in the fold, so I have enough to go forward. Okay, so here it is, sewn on. And I'm just going to check it so it looks like that. So it looks good, don't you think? Okay, so then we're going to make 4 of these. And then we're just going to lay them out so that this meets in the middle. Well, when I first did this, I went, oh, this is going to be, they're not going to lock very well. So I want to make sure that you actually press 2 of them towards the middle, 2 opposites, and you're going to press 2 away from the middle. That way you'll have really good locking seams. And it does tell you to press your seams that way. If you don't, when you go to sew it, you're going to feel it's really bulky. So you're going to go, uh-oh. So then you can just repress it. It can be repressed really easy. But I think it's a pretty fun little block. I think it would be fun as an overall quilt if you just repeated this block. You could have a very festive, like, Cinco de Mayo quilt or something. Okay. The next one is called Mousse. And remember I was telling you guys that the reason I have some funny names is because I was trying to go through the alphabet. Well, it's really an elm tree. It's just like a scientific name for an elm tree. Since it's an elm tree, I decided to put this little chipmunk in the middle. And this is a fabric by Tula Pink. I don't know if you're familiar with her, but it's called Chipper. And she likes to put these animals around. She does like snails and stuff anyway. So there's my Chipper block. Okay, so I know that you guys would be really sad if we didn't have geese this month. So here are your geese. There's it is. So you're going to start with your 2 squares, and then you're going to make 4 geese that look like this. And there's a chart in there, what size squares you start and where you square them up to and all of that. So when you get that done, we're going to sew those geese to a background rectangle. And I'd like you to put the geese on the right side and the rectangle on the left, because when you flip this right sides together to sew, when you sew down, you want to make sure that your seam hits right where this intersects. That way when you go to press it open, you get a really good intersection. Can you see where the base of that goose is? You can go close. I think I did good, Eric. So anyway, so there's that. And when you get it done, you're going to press towards that rectangle. It's going to want to go anyway, because it's not going to want to fight that seam. Okay, so we have 4 of those. Okay, and then here's the chipper one, if we're going to do that one. But also in the same fabric, they had this little flower, so you can kind of pick and choose what you want to do. I happen to like chipper in the middle of the tree block. It's kind of appropriate, don't you think? Okay, so now we have to put in these side triangles, and then we're going to put some corners on. So for the side triangles, it's a little bit bigger square. And if we look at the square, this is stable and this is stable. And when I go and cut this on both diagonals, I'm going to start exposing bias in there. And so I want to make sure that my bias gets sewn into my block. I never want to have blocks, if I can help it, have blocks laying around that has bias on the outside edge. Because as they're being moved in and out of your boxes, on your sewing table, they can stretch a bit. So if you just cut this diagonally twice, and you want to be really good about it, you would put this one on this side. You would take it over and keep it the same registration as it was when it was one piece of fabric. That will keep your block the most stable. You can mix them up, but I'm giving you like the nitty-gritty details on it. Okay, so then we have it sewn. My little sample has a flower, and we're going to sew some corners on right here, but before we do, we need to cut off these tips. And what I did was, I'll get a better angle for Eric, is I just lined up my straight edge along the top of that goose patch, and I just trimmed it off. Okay? So I'm going to go ahead and do the rest. Since you're the last ones, I can do it, right? I had an idea this morning that if you did this and started adding a few borders, it would make a really cute placemat. I just thought it'd be fun, could be festive on your table. Okay, so I need to add these corners here. So I'm just going to take a smaller square and I'm going to cut it on one diagonal, because this is now my stable sides are out here and my bias is going to be in here. So I want those to be, this bias to be inside my block. Okay, so that's how that's going to be. Get rid of those. Okay, and then just complete it like that. And you might need to do a little, once you get it all sewn together, you might need to do a little sliver trimming, you know, so square it up to the size block that you're doing. So if you're doing 9-inch, you would square it up to 9.5 because they're unfinished at this point. All right, how'd that go? Good. Was it good? All right, thank you guys for coming. See you next month.